Capitol Hill has always been a place where power doesn't just speak, it hides, it whispers, it manipulates. Beneath the polished wood and towering marble, the walls carry the cracks of promises made to the people, and the scars of promises broken behind closed doors. But on this day, the building itself seemed restless. The air felt charged, almost electric, as if the very foundation knew something extraordinary was about to happen. Lawmakers shuffled their papers with rehearsed importance. Cameras blinked like silent predators waiting for a slip, a truth, a moment worth capturing. Spectators leaned forward, unknowingly on the edge of witnessing something rare in American politics. Not a performance. Not a talking point. But a reckoning. And it came in the form of a woman who had no intention of holding back. Jasmine Crockett. Sharp. Fearless. Unapologetically honest. A storm disguised as a congresswoman. She wasn't there to blend in. She wasn't there to protect egos. She wasn't there to play the game that Washington worships. She came to rip the mask off a system that had been lying to the American people for far too long. When the chairman finished his remarks, the room settled into the usual expectant silence. But Jasmine's pen tapped, slow, deliberate, dangerous. It was the sound of a fuse being lit. She lifted her head, eyes calm but piercing through the tension like a blade. "Thank you so much, Mr. Chair," she began, her tone polite, but carrying an energy that made even the cameras lean in. Then she said the words that shifted the oxygen in the room. "As you spoke, my pen got to going, because you said something about a slick con man tricking people." A ripple went through the chamber. The truth had entered the conversation. And Jasmine wasn't going to let it leave. "That," she said, her voice sharpening, "is exactly how we got into this mess. No names. No need. Everyone felt the impact. Everyone knew exactly who she meant. A man who convinced millions that healthcare wasn't a human right, but a luxury. A man who turned suffering into a political weapon. A man who made people believe that losing your health insurance was somehow normal, acceptable, inevitable. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Her words cut with brutal clarity. Right now, millions of Americans don't know if they're going to lose their health insurance. After that big, ugly bill passed, at least 17 million people will lose coverage. She wasn't reciting statistics. She was telling the story of a nation on the verge of despair. Parents wondering how they'll pay for insulin. Seniors afraid a diagnosis will wipe out their life savings. Kids praying their parents stay healthy because sickness is too expensive. And then Jasmine dropped the numbers that sucked the air out of the room. In just days, Americans across the country will either pay thousands more for health insurance, or lose their coverage entirely. Her voice tightened. 350,000 people, all from Republican districts represented on this committee, will lose coverage. This wasn't political warfare. This was accountability. She didn't speak in generalities. She didn't offer safe criticism. She named names. 25,000 from Chairman Jordan's district. 30,000 from Chairman Van Drew's. 20,000 from Chairman Fitzgerald's. Each number landed like a blow against the facade of compassion those lawmakers claimed to have. They weren't just failing America. They were failing their own people. Jasmine then delivered the offer, so simple, so reasonable, it exposed their entire act. "You can fix this today. Just sign the discharge petition to extend ACA subsidies for 3 years. Not forever. Not permanently. Just long enough to prevent a crisis." But the chairman didn't answer. Because he couldn't. So Jasmine did what few in Washington ever dare to do. She told the truth. This hearing is nothing but a distraction. A performative show. And then came the line that detonated across the room. "You sold out your constituents because Donald Trump and your billionaire donors told you to." Her voice was steady. The room was not. The shock was immediate. Some members stiffened. Others looked down. A few pretended to shuffle papers. But there was no escaping her words. Jasmine exposed the hypocrisy that had been carefully disguised behind patriotic slogans and fake concern. They claimed to care about fiscal responsibility. But they delivered permanent tax cuts to billionaires. They claimed to care about children. But slashed funding to schools and early education. They claimed to support rural America. But stripped resources from farmers and food programs. They claimed to care about seniors. But cut medical research and senior assistance programs. Every excuse they made crumbled under the weight of reality. And Jasmine brought the human stories forward with heart-wrenching precision. The teacher who hasn't seen a doctor in years. The police officer drowning in medical debt. The sanitation worker choosing between electricity and medication. The student who skips meals to pay for urgent care. The parent praying their child's prescription stays affordable for one more month. If you're living paycheck to paycheck in Trump's America, she said, you are on your own. Then she turned their favorite word, fraud, into a mirror they couldn't escape. They talked about fraud. But offered zero numbers. So Jasmine delivered them. The alleged fraud they complained about was nothing, compared to the $200 million Trump was trying to drain from taxpayers for himself. Nothing compared to the $40 billion he sent to Argentina. If the committee cared about waste and abuse, they would start with their own leader. But they wouldn't. Jasmine made sure the nation understood exactly why. They protect power. Not people. Then she delivered the final strike, a truth so brutal it left the room frozen in place. While Americans lined up at food banks, the president mocked working-class families at his Great Gatsby-themed Halloween party. A billionaire masquerade while Americans went hungry. The contrast was unforgivable. Jasmine's final plea wasn't political. It was deeply human. If we care about keeping people alive, if we care about whether Americans can see a doctor, buy food, pay rent, afford child care, then stop protecting the man wasting taxpayer money, and start protecting your own constituents. She paused. Not for drama. For impact. And with that, I yield. Silence. But it wasn't the silence of indifference. It was the silence of realization. The silence of truth landing where lies had lived for too long. Her words didn't stay in that room. They spilled into homes, workplaces, hospitals, classrooms. They reached people who'd been ignored, dismissed, and left behind. And something awakened. This wasn't just a speech. It was a warning. A demand. A line in the sand. A declaration that healthcare is not a luxury. It's not a bargaining chip. It's not a political stunt. It is a human right. Jasmine Crockett didn't just speak. She broke the silence. And America heard her, loud and clear.